Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to Gaming Your Own Way. My name is Chad, and today we are going to be ranking every first level spell specifically for the Warlock class inside of Baldur's Gate 3. Now, we're getting ready to start on a journey where we're going to rank all of the first level spells, but when thinking about setting this up, I did feel that I needed to do the Warlock spells in particular separate from every other class. We'll talk about why in just a minute. Now, if you enjoyed this video or find any info in this video helpful, make sure to hit the like button and the subscribe button and the notification bell so you get notifications for new videos like this. Additionally, comment down below if you agree or disagree with me on any of these and let me know why you rank some of these higher or lower than I do. This is obviously just my opinion and it's going to be biased by how I play the game. I'm trying to go at this from considering all other kind of aspects of play, but nonetheless, there's always going to be some hint of bias from my playstyle in my own ranking. And I obviously haven't played the game as much as the collective of every person in the world that owns Baldur's Gate, so there are definitely playstyles that I have not thought of. So let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Also, like with my last video where I ranked all of the Eldritch Invocations, which card in the top right-hand corner, if you haven't watched that yet, I will put a link. Rather, I will put all of the first level spells in a comment, and you can, for your ease, copy and paste that and rank all of these if you'd like. And then on my next video, should anyone choose to do it, I will list the community rankings and compare them to mine. And if after all of that you don't have anything you want to comment, just comment your favorite emoji because your comments go towards engagement. It's a massive help to me and to the channel. It helps other people find this video and I greatly appreciate it. So with that out of the way, why is it that we are separating the Warlock from every other class whenever we start ranking spells at any level? Well, the biggest reason is going to be how Warlock spell slots exist compared to Wizard or Sorcerer spell slots or Bards or any other caster. Warlocks, for a majority of the game, are only going to have 2 spell slots, and they are going to automatically cast at the highest possible level, meaning that the Warlock has to be so much more selective with what spells they pick, how they use their spells, what situations they're going to use their spells in. And additionally, it's not fair if we're looking at the Wizard spell list to compare Ice Knife to Cone of Cold, because it's not fair to compare a level 1 spell to a 5th level spell. But for the Warlock, it kind of does, because no matter what spell you're casting, you're always casting it at the highest possible level. So if I have a level 1 damage dealing spell that for some reason didn't gain any bonuses from upcasting, compared to a 5th level spell, obviously there is a comparison that needs to be made there because you have to pick spells that you're going to use, and you only get to use 2 of them, per short rest that is. So for every other class, whenever we look at, first level spells, we're going to be looking at first level spells really more or less in a vacuum against each other. However, for Warlock spells, we do have to consider level 1 spells against basically everything we're ever going to get. We are going to have to compare first level spells against 3rd level spells, because once you get 3rd level spell slots, your first level spells kind of are your 3rd level spells too. So with that little explanation out of the way on why we're breaking Warlock off from everything else, let's get started with the first level spells for the Warlock class. First off, we are going to have Armour of Agathys. This is going to be a level 1 abjuration spell, which is going to give you 5 temporary hit points. And whenever a creature deals melee damage to you, you are going to deal 5 points of cold damage back to them. Thankfully, Armour of Agathys does take benefit from upcasting to higher levels, which is good for the Warlock. That is something you're going to see a big focus on as we are going up, that anything that does not benefit from upcasting generally is going to probably rank a little bit lower with some exceptions. As you upcast Armour of Agathys, you are going to gain an additional 5 temporary hit points, and you are going to deal an additional 5 cold damage anytime you use another higher level spell slot. Now, Armour of Agathys is a very interesting spell because it's definitely good, don't get me wrong, but it's primarily good for a very specific type of Warlock, and that's going to be your Pact of the Blade Warlock that is going to be up close dealing damage with like a melee weapon. Because that cold damage is only based on melee damage that you receive, if you're playing a caster, the cold damage is kind of negated and you're really just spending a spell slot to get temporary hit points, which, don't get me wrong, False Life is another first level spell that does that. There are spells that give you temporary hit points, but the question you have to ask yourself is, do I want to spend one of my 2 spell slots to give myself temporary hit points if I don't envision myself being in a situation where I'm going to take melee damage? It's similar to whenever I talked about cantrips and I ranked all the cantrips and I said Shocking Grasp was C tier, because while it has its uses, you don't want to be in those situations where those use cases come up to begin with. Most Warlocks don't want to be on the front lines up next to melee attackers. So is it really worthwhile to activate this spell if you don't envision taking that damage? I would say in the early game, the answer is absolutely yes. Because in the early game, you have a lot less control and there are a lot more smaller mobs that are going to gang up on you. At the beginning of the game, it's all focused on numbers rather than really scary enemies, and Armour of Agathys can be great for that. And alternatively, unlike Shocking Grasp with the Wizard or the Sorcerer, there are Warlocks that do actually want to be up close and personal with the blade when you're using Pact of the Blade. So for that reason, I am going to put Armour of Agathys at the A tier. It certainly does not fit my playstyle for the Warlock, but I acknowledge that there are playstyles for which Armour of Agathys does make sense. I am not prepared, however, to put it at the S tier because while I acknowledge it is a good spell, once again, we do have to compare that spell against all of your higher level spells you are going to use. Granted, it does not take concentration, which is a massive plus for Armour of Agathys. But generally, your Warlock is going to be casting at least one concentration level spell, which means you get one other spell that either is your backup for if your concentration gets broken, or one other freebie spell to use for something like Fireball, or anything else that doesn't require concentration. So the question I have to ask myself is once I start getting to higher levels of play, and I have higher level spell slots, do I want to use that extra spell slot for Armour of Agathys? And for the most part, the answer to that is no. Are there some cases where I will? Absolutely. That's why it's going in the A tier and not lower. But Armour of Agathys is a great spell. It definitely deserves its place in the A tier. Next up, we have Arms of Hadar. This is going to be a first level conjuration spell that is going to be centered on the Warlock. When you activate the spell, you are going to use one of your first level Warlock spell slots to send out these nasty little tendrils to hit people within 10 feet of you. You are then going to deal 2d6 necrotic damage and prevent any of the enemies that are hit from taking reactions. If creatures make a strength saving throw, then they will still take half damage, but they will be able to take reactions. Arms of Hadar can be nice when you're like second level. And almost, in my experience, only when you're second level. Again, Arms of Hadar is kind of like an AoE Shocking Grasp. It can hit multiple enemies, and it prevents them hopefully from taking reactions so that you can yeet yourself out of there if you're in a dangerous situation. Once again though, if you find yourself in a situation where you are using Arms of Hadar, you are probably in a situation you don't want to be in, and there probably either needs to be a better solution or you need to find a different solution, or you shouldn't have gotten yourself in that situation in the first place. Now at early levels of the game, again, whenever you have a lot of lower level mobs attacking you, you may not have that much control. You may get ganged up on relatively easily, and Arms of Hadar can be a very viable spell. And it does take benefits from upcasting, but I can honestly say that I have never cast Arms of Hadar after I unlocked like third level spells, maybe even second level spells. I would have to think about it. Because once again, it is not concentration based, and it does gain benefits from upcasting, so 2 bonuses for it. But I have to ask myself, do I want to use my one non-concentration spell slot that I've kind of allotted to use for Arms of Hadar? And really, if I'm using it for Arms of Hadar, that means I have to save it until I'm in trouble, so I'm basically having to hoard this extra spell slot. And I think the answer to that is probably going to be no. I'm going to put it at the C tier. It's not a trap because it does have its uses in the early game, and there are some situations I can see a Pact of the Blade user getting some use out of this, but in general, I don't feel that it has the longevity to rank much higher than the C tier. It is also worth noting that during this video, we are considering just the base Warlock, not doing any sort of multi-classing shenanigans, because I know that you guys can get into a lot of shenanigans with all of the different types of multi-classing combos that you guys think of. I love reading your guys' comments on the different multi-classing things that you guys come up with. Like I read one about how I ranked the Mage Armor, Eldritch Invocation pretty low. And one of our commenters, whose name I will have to look up, I'll put it up on the screen, said that they use that, and they said they found a use for using that free Mage Armor to power their Arcane Ward. We're not going to consider all of those off cases for this ranking, but comment down below if you feel that some of these need to be ranked higher or lower based on multi-classing options. They're not going to affect this ranking, but I still love to hear about those things. And they can help other people too who are experimenting with multi-classing. Next up, we have Burning Hands. Burning Hands is going to be a level 1 evocation spell that is available exclusively to Warlocks that make their pact with a fiend. Burning Hands is going to deal 3d6 fire damage to all enemies from a 5-meter cone centered at the caster. And all enemies will make a dex save to take half damage. I'm not going to keep harping on this, but once again, Burning Hands, it's not a melee spell, but it is a very close quarter spell. It is very niche. It's looking at that Pact of the Blade user probably that's going to be up close and personal with enemies. It does benefit from upcasting, which is nice, but anything with that limited of range reduces a lot of your flexibility with your spells. Considering the fact that the Fiend Warlocks are going to gain access to Fireball at 3rd level, and Fireball has a bigger radius and it is ranged, that's a comparison that we have to make because we are going to be casting again at the highest level spell slot. So while Burning Hands may be useful at the beginning of the game, it's going to drop off relatively quickly. for the reason that it's going to see its drop off, it's not going to have its use, and it's relatively limited to mostly just early game and Pact of the Blade users. I'm going to rank Burning Hands in the C tier. Next on our list, we have Charm Person. Charm Person is a level 1 enchantment spell, which you can use in order to gain advantage on charisma checks against someone of your choice. In combat, it will prevent enemies from attacking you. It's worth noting that at higher levels of play, enemies might accuse you of charming them and become hostile after you do it and the spell ends. I'm not going to waste any time. Charm Person for the Warlock is a D tier spell. Let's talk about why. Outside of combat, you can just use Friends, a cantrip that is available to the Warlock to gain advantage on all charisma checks. Both Friends and Charm Person at higher levels can have the target accuse you of enchanting them. And yet again, as we talked on our cantrip list, you can just run away if you cast Friends before they become hostile towards you. So Charm Person outside of combat can be completely negated by Friends. Inside of combat, enemies are going to have advantage on the saving throw against you. The condition ends early if you deal damage to them, and it only prevents them from attacking you. They can still go attack anyone else. On top of that, you can replace this entirely with the Illithid power that allows you to charm people as a reaction. Granted, it's not proactive, but still. I feel like we've talked about enough reasons, and if we need to add one more on top of all of this, a spell that if you use outside of combat could have been a cantrip. Inside of combat, they have advantage on it. It doesn't help your allies, and it can end early if they take damage, and all of that for one of your spell slots. The only advantage this thing does have is that it doesn't require your concentration. That is not enough. It is a D tier spell, unfortunately, for the Warlock, and probably I'll have to think about everyone else. I haven't thought about all the other classes, but for the Warlock, definitely Charm Person, D tier spell. Next up, we have Command. Command is available to the Fiend Warlock and is a level 1 enchantment spell. Command is going to enable your Warlock to order an enemy to flee, move closer, freeze, drop their weapon on the ground, or drop to the ground. Command does gain benefits from upcasting. At each level higher, you can target an additional creature. And that target or targets are going to have to make a Wisdom saving throw in order to resist the effects of Command. Now, I am tempted to put Command at the A tier, and I'm honestly really conflicted about if it's like A- or B+. And I have it slated for the B tier temporarily. And this is a little bit based on anecdotal experience that I really struggle to have people not resist the effects to make their saving throw on the Command spell. I love that it is capable of upcasting. There are some really clutch moments when Command can do some very nice things, causing multiple enemies to drop their weapons, go prone so that your rogue can have sneak attack advantage. There are a lot of situations in which Command is very nice. The fact that it upcasts makes me want to put it into the A tier. I'm going to go with my gut and leave it in the B tier for right now, but I could be convinced that it's an A tier spell. It also has the other benefit that it doesn't require your concentration like a lot of very important Warlock spells do. The question that I'm asking myself is it on the same level as Armour of Agathys? Because I have Armour of Agathys at A tier. Armour of Agathys is almost not super applicable to a lot of different Warlocks. Screw it. I'm gonna change my mind. I'm gonna put Command at the A- tier. Let me know your thoughts on if you agree or disagree with that ranking. I personally don't use Command super often, and in fact, I'm not playing a Fiend Warlock currently, so I don't even have Command. So I feel like I'm tempted to put it lower just because I don't use it super often. There are a lot of other spells that I want to use, but I think it's a completely viable spell for a lot of different situations, and the fact that it upcasts doesn't require concentration, we're going with it A tier. Next on our list, we have Dissonant Whispers. Dissonant Whispers is a level 1 enchantment spell that is going to enable you to target a single target and deal 3d6 psychic damage and potentially frighten them. On a successful Wisdom saving throw, the creature will not be frightened and will take half of the psychic damage. Dissonant Whispers has some good things going for it and some bad things going for it. The good things going for it, it deals pretty nice damage for a first level spell. It is a ranged spell. Unlike Burning Hands, you don't have to be right next to the enemy, making it viable for both casters and Pact of the Blade users. It has benefits from upcasting, and it does not require concentration. However, on the other side, it is a single target spell, and that is a hard sell. For as you level up, why would I use Dissonant Whispers when I can use several of the other spells available to the Warlock? It does frighten, but it only frightens one specific mob. For that reason, I'm going to put Dissonant Whispers at the B tier. It is definitely viable at the early game, up to probably about 3rd or 4th level. And I have to rank it higher than Burning Hands because while Burning Hands is an AoE, it puts you probably in a situation that a lot of Warlocks don't want to be in. And Dissonant Whispers does carry an additional effect, which it does frighten a creature and make it run away from you if you happen to do that on a boss, say, or someone that is a high priority enemy. That can be really huge for your party. So because of the additional effect and the fact that it is ranged, so therefore it is applicable to more Warlocks, I'm going to put it at the B tier. Next up, we have Expeditious Retreat. Expeditious Retreat is a level 1 transmutation spell that you can cast as a bonus action. It requires your concentration and it gives you the dash action to use immediately, and you can use it as a bonus action on each subsequent turn while you are concentrating on the spell. And that sounds really, really cool, except for the fact that it requires your concentration. And Warlocks, in general, like to be concentrating on spells. And let me tell you what a Warlock doesn't want to concentrate on: Expeditious Retreat. Especially when we start looking at higher levels of play, when you have Cloud of Daggers, Hunger of Hadar, Darkness. I don't want to be focusing on Expeditious Retreat. I would rather cast Arms of Hadar if I'm in a situation that I need to bolt out of. Expeditious Retreat is going in the D tier for me. Next on our list, we have Faerie Fire. This is a level 1 evocation spell that has an area of effect. It is going to illuminate an area and all enemies within the light are going to turn visible and attack rolls against them are going to have advantage. Faerie Fire is only going to be available to Warlocks that have made their pact with the Archfey. Now, one thing I'm not going to do, although you could make the argument that you should, I am not going to let the patron affect where I rank Faerie Fire. In my humblest of opinions, the Archfey is my least favorite of the 3 patrons you can pick from, and I'm tempted to, but not going to reduce it for that reason, because Faerie Fire is a really good spell. It does require your concentration, and at earlier stages of the game, it's excellent. And mid to late level of the game, it's also excellent. There's an argument to be made. Your Warlock probably doesn't want to be concentrating on Faerie Fire later in the game, but there are situations where they may want to. But the idea that within an area you can give all of your allies advantage on their attack rolls against a specific enemy is great. However, as you progress through the game, there are different ways to grant yourself advantage on attack rolls, whether that's hiding inside of darkness and casting out of it. Whether that is hiding, there are different ways getting the high ground. There are different ways to gain advantage on enemies rather than using Faerie Fire. So while it is very nice early on in the game, it can be replaced with some maneuvering and with some different tactics. Don't get me wrong, Faerie Fire is a great spell. I'm going to put it at the A tier, but I don't know that I can go any higher than that. Next on our list, we have Hellish Rebuke, which is a level 1 evocation spell. This spell can be cast as a reaction, and whenever someone deals damage to you, you can choose to use your reaction and a Warlock spell slot to deal 2d10 fire damage to them, which does upcast to deal an additional 1d10 fire damage per upcasted level. Hellish Rebuke, I'm going to put at the C tier. It does not feel good to have a single fire target to which you are going to deal fire damage, one of the more commonly resisted types of damage, to burn off your last spell slot. Again, assuming you have one of those kind of pigeonholed for a concentration-based spell. I think even at early levels of play, looking at this list, I would rather not use Hellish Rebuke and use either Dissonant Whispers or even Burning Hands. Next up, we have Hex, and Hex is going to be a level 1 enchantment spell. You are enabled to cast Hex on a single target. It is a concentration-based spell. You are going to deal 1d6 necrotic damage additionally with your weapon attacks and with your spell attacks, so your Eldritch Blast. If the target dies before Hex's effect ends, you can recast Hex without expending an additional spell slot on another target, and the target you have cast Hex on will have disadvantage on ability checks of 1 ability score of your choosing. It is very important to note, this is ability checks, not saving throws. To my knowledge, let me know down in the comments if I'm missing something. The only ability checks that enemies actively make are to shove, which is strength-based. So in general, when you use Hex, to my knowledge, the only ability score to use Hex on is strength. I don't know if enemies use the hide action ever. I suppose there could be a use case for dexterity if they use the hide action, but otherwise it's just always strength to help you resist being shoved, I suppose, or anyone else being shoved for that matter. Hex does not gain any bonuses from upcasting, but it is still really nice. Let's be honest, we cast Hex so we can deal an additional 1d6 damage on our Eldritch Blast. That's why it's there. It's kind of like Hunter's Mark for the Ranger. It is the bread and butter of the Warlock, and you can recast it on subsequent enemies after you have killed them. I love Hex. However, I am only going to put it at the A tier because it is a single target spell and it requires your concentration. At higher levels of play, my concentration-based spells are going to need to do more than target one specific person. It does have the benefit of not having a saving throw, so they can't resist the effects of Hex. But at the end of the day, at higher levels of play, I am mostly not hexing an enemy. I'm casting Hunger of Hadar, Cloud of Daggers, something else. However, early game, and there are times throughout the rest of the game where Hex is very good. Hex is one of my favorite spells for a Warlock. I don't use it a ton after I start to get third level spells, but Hex is very good, and it's easily going into the A tier. Next on our list, we have Protection from Evil and Good. This is going to be a level 1 Abjuration spell, which is going to protect an ally against the attacks, powers of Aberration, Celestials, Elementals, Fiends, Fays, and Undead. The ally that you choose cannot be charmed, frightened, or possessed by them, and these creatures that attack it have disadvantage on their attack rolls. It also requires your concentration and does not gain any benefits from upcasting. I am going to place Protection from Evil and Good extraordinarily tentatively at the C tier, like the C- tier. Here's why. Protection from Evil and Good is not necessarily a bad spell. However, I don't know that I want my Warlock almost at any point in the game concentrating on one target that is an ally on their spell. That is not how I want to use my Warlock spell slot and my concentration. There are times when this could save the day. You could save one of your allies that's maybe really close to a couple of undead, and Protection from Evil and Good will save their entire life. Like, it's not a trap spell by any means, but it is not an effective use of your Warlock. So I would say a Warlock casting Protection from Evil and Good should be a last case scenario where you are potentially saving somebody's life. Otherwise, either let someone else cast it or do something else. So for that reason, Protection, Evil, and Good is going to go at the bottom of the C tier. Next on our list, we have Sleep. Sleep is going to be a level 1 enchantment spell, which is going to allow you to put enemies into a deep magical slumber. You can select different targets up to a combined 24 hit points for 8 additional hit points when upcast at higher levels. Additionally, the spell does not require your concentration, and then attack rolls against those characters are going to have advantage. However, there are quite a few negatives for the Sleep condition. While it does not have a saving throw, the hit points are pretty low, which means you are relegated to using this on pretty low level mobs that you just kind of don't want to have to deal with. Creatures that are damaged automatically awake from their magical slumber, or if they are shoved or helped, will also wake up. Because of the fact that this is mostly only useful on low level mobs, and the fact that it is so easy to even accidentally wake someone up from the magical slumber, I'm going to put Sleep at the C tier. It has its bonuses, but it also has too many ways that this condition can just be shut off. So we're going to throw it at the C tier. For our penultimate spell, we have Tasha's Hideous Laughter. This is going to be available to Warlocks that make their pact with the Great Old One. Tasha's Hideous Laughter is a level 1 enchantment spell that is going to enable you to select one creature and put them into a fit of laughter falling prone. This is a concentration-based spell that is going to last for 10 turns, and every time the target takes damage, it can make an additional saving throw to shake off the effect. The creature must also have an intelligence of 5 or higher to be affected by this spell. There are no benefits to upcasting Tasha's Hideous Laughter. And on a successful wisdom save, they just don't. They don't find it funny. For all of these reasons, I'm going to put Tasha's Hideous Laughter in the C tier. It is targeting one creature. It does not target any additional creatures at higher levels. They can save against it and take no effects. It requires your concentration. It has a benefit, sure, but every time you hurt them, they can shake the effect off. So you're making them go prone so you get advantage on your attacks, and then if you attack them, then they could just get back up and you no longer have advantage. Again, just use Faerie Fire. Faerie Fire affects more people. It is still concentration based, and they can't shake it off if you take damage. So Tasha's Hideous Laughter is just a little too narrow, and we're going to put it at the C tier. Oh dear God. And finally, for our last spell, we have Witch Bolt. Witch Bolt is a level 1 evocation spell where it requires your concentration. You can link yourself to another enemy. You can deal 1d12 lightning damage on a successful attack roll. And then for every subsequent turn, you can activate the Witch Bolt by dealing 1d12 guaranteed damage. you can upcast it for an additional 1d12 damage on the initial hit only. Every subsequent turn where you use your entire action to activate Witch Bolt, it is going to do 1d12 of damage. For that reason, Witch Bolt basically does not have any benefit from upcasting, in my opinion. You get the additional 1d12 of damage per level, but then after that you get no additional thing, and it requires your concentration. And it takes your action to activate. If it took your bonus action to activate, and you got to take a bonus action for your concentration to deal 1d12, whole different ballgame. But it requires your action to deal the 1d12. I get that it takes an additional attack, but your Eldritch Blast at first level is probably dealing 1d10 plus 3 force damage, which is not as easily resisted as lightning damage is. God, talking is hard today. Witch Bolt just gets me so frustrated. There is one extraordinarily niche use of Witch Bolt, and that is that when you are fighting the hag, you can link yourself to an enemy using Witch Bolt, and then whenever she begins creating illusory copies of herself, you can always know which one is the hag because you are linked to the original hag. However, in doing that, if you focus fire on just the hag and she keeps creating more illusory copies of them and you're letting that get away from you, those illusory copies are just going to kill you. So while it's nice to know which one is the hag, you still have to deal with the illusory copies, otherwise they'll just murder your face. So yeah, Witch Bolt, kind of garbage, D tier. All right, that's going to do it for us. That's going to take us through every single first level spell available to the Warlock, excluding the ones that you get via Eldritch Invocations. If you are interested in watching that video, I will put a card in the top left-hand corner and you can go watch the video where we talk about all the different Eldritch Invocations and rank all of those. As you can see, I will put the visual up here on the screen. We had no first level spells make it into the S tier. That is specifically because we are considering upcasting in all of the higher level spells when we perform this ranking. We, unfortunately, since we are casting everything at higher levels of play, we do have to consider the fact that the spells are going to have some sort of longevity in order to make it into the S tier. Spells that have high levels of value at early levels of the game are still ranked higher. Those are still your B and A tier level spells. But for longevity and for later levels of play in the game, unfortunately from first level spells, not a whole lot of S tier going on. So what do you guys think? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Did you find any of this helpful, useful? Do you disagree? And do you think any of these spells are S tier? Are you in the final boss battle using any of these first level spells? I am really interested to know. I personally am not, but also I'm not all of you. So I'm sure you guys have thought of something that I have not. Additionally, I will post a comment down below. I will pin it, which will have a list of all of these so that you can rank them yourself. And if you choose to do that, I will let you guys know in my subsequent video how you guys ranked these spells compared to my rankings. If you don't have anything else you want to say, just comment your favorite emoji because once again, your comments are a massive help to the channel. They help other people find the video, they help with YouTube algorithm, and I greatly appreciate your guys' comments. If you enjoyed this video and you want to see more, make sure to hit the like button, the subscribe button, and the notification bell so you get notifications of new videos like this. Go ahead and watch this video up here if you want to see my ranking on different Eldritch Invocations. You can click up here if you want to subscribe to the channel, and you can go over here if you want to watch any of my other videos on Baldur's Gate 3. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and good luck in Baldur's Gate and serving your otherworldly patrons.